Well, guys, yes, last video I did suggest it might happen. Turns out it has. Super Adventure Box is live in the game, and not even as an April Fool's thing, I guess. ArenaNet got the jump on us early. Thursday the 31st, right now, if you go in game, SAB is back for the first time in a long while. I guess the reason that the devs jumped this out in this fast time is because people were starting to catch on. I've heard some interesting stories, shall we leave it there, about people catching on quite early that Super Adventure Box was coming out. I mean, even recently, quite publicly, people found on the APIs that under the festival section, SAB was now there. So it looks like the devs are at least once a year thinking of bringing this back, as it's now like a fully fledged festival. Most of the changes that have gone in today for SAB are about just re-implementing it, and it sounds like a lot more is coming tomorrow. So yes, there will be some footage of SAB in the background for those of you who have never played it before, or, you know, just want a bit of that nostalgia trip for this, coming right up. But I'm not going to talk too much about it just yet. I'd rather, you know, get a fuller experience for myself. I've really not been able to play very much. Actually, funnily enough, this is the second version of this video. I essentially had produced an entire video, basically had it up talking about how Super Adventure Box was insanely likely to happen. And then I noticed that the patch has actually come out and it's there. So, yeah, that's great. But yes, big news. I mean, if you want to play it, you guys don't have to listen to me ramble on away. Just go to Ratasum, check it out. For those who are totally out of the loop, this is essentially a game within a game, very platforming based, but also has some kind of cool little RPG mechanics in there too. Lots of hidden things, lots of cool achievements, lots of weapon skins that haven't been available for ages, so people value quite highly. And, yeah, I absolutely cannot wait to get back in. So, I do have some kind of newsy things to talk about, but I did want to open up this video, just discuss a little bit the previous video. You know, I had a couple of people talk to me saying, hey, WP, here's a couple of things you maybe should have mentioned in the video that you didn't. I'm a little disappointed that you never managed to get the full breadth of arguments and discussion in that one production. And there were definitely arguments on either side that I could have also included. And to those people, yes, I agree with you. It would have been nice to have a bit more in there, but you've got to remember videos have a certain length. I guess the best I can do is assure you that maybe in future videos I can do follow-up statements like this right here. Obviously, if you guys missed it, ArenaNet revealed the fact that they are cancelling the continuation of further legendary weapons. Upset an awful lot of people. For me, it's not so much, and I would like to be clear about this, it's not so much about the cancellation of the legendary weapons. I'm kind of weird in a way. I wasn't planning on making legendary weapons, and funnily enough, now that I know there's never going to be any more, it's kind of like, oh, here's an interesting goal. Get every single legendary now, because there's only going to be 4. They're really hard to get in Heart of Thorns. I'm definitely not saying this is what I'm going to do. But my problems weren't so much that they're cancelling the amount of legendary weapons, but more the fact that ArenaNet still quite clearly haven't found their feet, and that they're doing something like this in the face of all that they mentioned in Heart of Thorns. The fact it was less content side, heavier on the feature side, to enable them to continue pumping out lots of content in the future. I thoroughly believed, and I restated what ArenaNet said to you guys so many times, that ArenaNet weren't going to keep scrapping systems, that was done for, that people were complaining now, but it was far too late to be complaining. You kind of missed the party, and ArenaNet have got themselves sorted out now. I said that so many times, and, well, I guess being a cynical bastard would have done me better. I got egg on my face now. Now, obviously, they don't have it sorted out, and that's very disheartening to see. That's a big part of my upset. The other big part of my upset was, frankly, yes, the quote that Mike gave, not about legendary weapons, but just about his opinions on the size of the current expansion pack, especially with regard to the content droughts we've experienced on either side of the expansion pack, and how he seems to be hand-waving the idea that it's not okay. That's really what I took issue with. And yes, I really do mean what I said at the end of that video. If the next expansion pack does turn out to be somewhere around the scope of Heart of Thorns, I'm really not that interested in any future expansion pack they do after that. That said, that buys them at least a couple of years to prove us otherwise, I guess, until we see the next one. So I'll be around until then. It's not like I'm packing my bags and leaving. Hopefully that much was clear. A few people were like, whoa, WP's gonna quit. We're not quite in that position yet. And I can understand, right? Like, you have to make hard compromises. One thing I thought was so brain dead and obvious it didn't need to be mentioned, but a lot of people got very hung up on, so I'll say it here now. People are wondering how the legendary weapon team were so incapable of making just a couple couple of items. And you had a lot of armchair people saying, oh, I'm a modeler. I know how to do this stuff. I could do this really easily. Just tell me what it looks like and I'll do it. They have expressly said to us many times, and I thought this was kind of common knowledge at this point, that it's not so much about the physical legendary itself with its animations and special effects and stuff, though there's some work there. It's more about the collections. That's why I focused as much on the collections as I did in that video. It's more about the actual implementation of this kind of pseudo quest to acquire it. And that leads on to a lot of other interesting discussion I sadly missed out on, in the lines of who's actually enjoying those collections in the first place. There are a lot of people just saying, we don't care about that. If that's the most of the work, we don't care about that stuff. You tried to do something interesting with the scavenger hunt, but it just feels grindy at this point. It's not real content anyway. They're just checklists. It doesn't feel that good. Why don't you just scrap that system? Why are you so adamant on that and continue to give us the legendaries, so that you're not going back on your game's marketing, for example? And those are arguments I'm definitely behind as well. Having not experienced too much of it myself, I can't say with absolute certainty that the legendary scavenger hunts and the precursor scavenger hunts and stuff don't have any value to them at all. But I appreciate the sentiments that people are coming out with there. But you should understand that it's not just about making a damn model. Then the other really brain dead thing as well that some people wanted me to mention, but again I think is so obvious. Yes, they used the term cancelled indefinitely. I have seriously seen some people really hone in on this and try their best to say, oh, they'll be coming back. They'll be coming back. Understand, guys, this is the closest you can get to cancelling something without outright saying it. In what world, honestly, given what we know about ArenaNet now, in what world do you foresee a legendary weapon team coming back together? Now go on, really think about it right now. What, when they are in crunch before the next expansion comes out? Or when they're in a period of time like this, when they're still incapable of doing it and they need more people on Living World? That kind of segues me into the last discussion as well of that a lot of people are saying, and I kind of agree with, but I don't see the value in voicing it because obviously we don't work at the company. We don't know their finances. But the temptation is obviously to say, oh, why don't they just hire more people? Usually in business, if you're still making a profit, and ArenaNet, the NC soft reportings and stuff are still showing that ArenaNet are doing well. I think definitely their push for glider skins and stuff like that has enabled them to continue doing financially well, even if the expansion itself undersold. They never actually specifically said that the expansion undersold, by the way. They said that the conversion of free-to-play players into full account players has been lower than they expected. There's a big distinction there. But it's showing that ArenaNet are still making profit, still doing well. So why aren't they hiring more people? Right, I get the logic there, but two things to consider when you're going down that rabbit hole. Number one, you don't work at the company, you don't know their finances, but also there is a very well-known fact in the business world that as you add more people to a project or to a team, it doesn't necessarily allow them to produce things faster. You have to get everyone on the same page. The more minds that you put on a creative project, the more chance there is for people to disagree and for lots of discussion to be born where perhaps not necessarily any need for it. And the solution is not always just throw more money and devs at it, despite what you think Blizzard can get away with. And certainly not in the short term, right? And I think that's the point right now, that in the short term, ArenaNet really are struggling and want to get more going out quicker, so it goes on the back burner for them probably forever. Really, that's all it. The word entitlement has been thrown around a few times, but honestly, I don't see the problem with people feeling entitled to something that was marketed on the game, and I don't really think that's much of a defense for ArenaNet either in that case. But yeah, hopefully you guys understand a little bit more of where I stand. I'd like to hear where you are now that the dust has settled. Let's get on to some of the other changes that have been going on with the game, aside from just speculative SAB stuff. Now, there was another comment from Mike about the April update, all right? This spring 2016 update, what was going to be coming. Really, I still honestly believe that they've been quite vague about what's coming with the patch, but there was another post that highlighted some key areas. Now, number one, I'm going to talk about World versus World. Yes, World versus World. As you guys know, I don't play too much of this format, but they did poll the community about 2 weeks ago, Mike said, asking them what they would prefer to play, the new Borderlands or the old ones. And obviously, everyone said the old Borderlands, the Alpine Borderlands. In response to this, ArenaNet listened, and yes, that is returning. We're going back to the Alpine Borderlands. They've said that it's not coming in the next patch, so it's kind of weird to shoehorn into this post, I suppose, but that's going on. The devs have kind of talked about the idea of rotating that map in and out, but that's not what they're saying here. They're just saying until they get all that stuff, the rotation idea and whatever finished, they're just putting the Alpine Borderlands back in right now. Really interesting topic. I think that will make a lot of World vs. Worlders happy, even if you don't care that much about the Alpine Borderlands, which, by the way, I believe the majority of players really do. It's even just interesting to go back to a map you haven't got to play for almost a year, right? It is an interesting topic. I don't think this means that we will never see the new Desert Borderlands in use anywhere else. I've seen some comments from people saying, oh, they should use them as PvE maps. That's an interesting idea, and I like the idea. I mean, hell, it would be nice to have that kind of map as a part of the open world in the regular PvE game. Hell, that's not so meta event bound, right? That's got, you know, just a little bit more casual exploration to it. But then even still has its own little, you know, cyclical meta that would go on every now and then because of the giant event that's in the center of the map. All that said, though, I don't think that's where their efforts are best put to use. And before they rotate the Alpine Borderlands in, they have already said they're making a bunch of tweaks to the desert ones, which they want feedback on. So you give your feedback on the Desert Borderlands tweaks they've given. They're going to see how they can improve them further. We'll go to Alpine for a while, and then hopefully when they bring Desert back, maybe on some kind of rotation system, it's in a place for World versus World people like. As interesting as the PvE idea is, come on guys, let's face it, it's really not going to be happening. Alpine Borderlands coming back for World vs. World. Other vague comments, they've talked about their goals for World vs. World, but not their execution of those goals in the past, so we'll just wait and see what they do, because information is very thin on the ground, as anyone who's super into World vs. World is more than aware of. Next format that was needs some serious tender loving care would be Fractals, of course, and Fractals are going to be getting some updates. Mike here explains that there are going to be multiple changes to Fractals, and he only gives us specifics on one, and these are changes to the tiering structure. Now, bear with me, guys. Fractals have looked so terrible to me since Heart of Thorns came out. I've barely played them at all, but what I guess he means here is how different groups of fractal scales are banded together into tiers. So you got, like, the low-tier scales, then the higher tier, then the higher tier, then the higher tier, and they have separate, like, daily achievements and so on people go for. That basically means currently people do a swamp in each tier, and that's it. So they're changing this. The idea, I guess, is to get rid of Swamp of the Mists. I don't know whether this patch will, but a consequence of that, at the very least, is 2 achievements associated with those tiers are now going away. So if you don't get those before the patch, they're gone for good. I really don't mind that those achievements are gone, but it doesn't excite me, the prospect of this change, to get into Fractals alone. I don't think I'm going to be really interested to get back into Fractals until they scale significantly differently, so that enemies aren't just massive HP sponges, until they start doing a little bit more damage, and until the instabilities themselves are rebalanced to look more fun, because all you ever hear across the board right now is how terrible they are. I appreciate this is just hearsay I'm giving you guys, but maybe someone with a contradictory opinion can chime in the comments down below. Here's another change, probably the best of the bunch that he's announced. Not that many were. This is, don't forget, slated to be the Reduce Heart of Thorns Grind patch. Whatever that means. Well, we've been speculating before. Here's something more concrete. Scribing costs are going down. Man, I feel like this took way too long to implement. Obviously, they needed time to assess where the economy in-game would balance out for scribing. They do believe it's too expensive. This is finally this patch coming in. The way that they're doing this is... The thing that really plagues scribing is so many of the things you create need these basic materials that themselves are composed of so many other materials that even if you're trying to make something quite simple, it suddenly just scales up to this ridiculous amount of stuff. So that's what they're reining in. Coarse sand, for example, I think was one of the things that they gave an example. A lot of that basic stuff is coming down, the amount you need, and so then that affects the recipes in general. I do think I've waited long enough, and it is this patch I'm going to go for scribing. I'm like a level 20 scribe at the moment, I think, maybe even less than that. I'm going to try and max it out. You guys can expect a video where I talk about my experience post-patch, hopefully when it's in a more balanced place. Of course, the catch-22 there, though, is everyone's going to be trying scribing, or at least a huge amount of people are going to be, because of this patch, thus inflating the item. So, I don't know. I'm sick of waiting, though. So, we're going for scribing, and I'll let you guys know exactly how that feels once they've enacted those changes. And that's really it, guys. That's what we've got to expect. Another little thing, I haven't talked about patch notes for a while. 2 things I found mostly interesting. Yes, there's new outfits, one of which is incredibly ugly, and I bought specifically for that reason. The bunny ears came back. They're gone again. Sorry, don't hate me for not covering it in time, guys. There's a new bubble glider. There's all that kind of stuff always getting churned out. But the things that I found most interesting, number 1 was a weird patch that added a new building, supposedly, near Golem Mark II. Now, I did go there. You should see the footage in the background for it right now, trying to find out what the structure is. Is it the giant, like, triangular thing up there? That seems like a really random patch. These are the kind of strange changes that I'm expecting we'll see a few more of going into the game in the future now. But whether we should really speculate about this or what, I don't know. Maybe there was just a dev that didn't like the fact that there was no roof on that thing. Was there a roof before? I really don't remember, but that was one patch. The other thing that was very interesting to me, and maybe you guys are interested about, is bank slots. Bank slots did go up. I have been hanging onto some bank slots for a long time that I haven't been able to use, that I foolishly bought in the gem store, thinking they would have some practical use, and they didn't. And oh my lord, finally, ArenaNet expand the amount we can have, and I popped those bad boys straight away. So I just wanted to let you guys know that was one of the bigger patches for me. And yeah, that's really it. We will see how things go tomorrow. I did want to do this video mainly today to get some clarifications about my opinions on the whole legendary weapons thing. But the thing that was actually very cool was so many of you guys were like, yeah, WP, screw Guild Wars 2, I'll follow you to other games. On that note, if you aren't aware, for the past, like, month now, 3 weeks, I've been running another channel where we do play other games. A lot of you were asking me to play Stardew Valley, and a series on that started just yesterday. It'll appear on the end slate. So, hey, let's chill out and let everybody know. So check that out if you guys like. Thanks very much for watching. Apologies if the mic is sounding a bit weird. As always, I'm struggling with it wrestling. One day we will be happy. But until then, I will see you tomorrow for a lot of cool talk about that weird thing I mentioned at the start of the video. Super adventure box? I'll see you next time.
Another adventure with your Oreo.
With your Oreo. We're not an Oreo, dude. We're not an Oreo.
I'm trying to make it work.
That's a black person.
I'm trying to make it work, okay? I could be you could go inside me and you can be the cream filling.
Oh my god. Oh my.
It's fine. Let's just move on.
Can that be my nickname, Cream Filling? Welcome, guys. Today we're playing Stardew Valley.